Hi, welcome to our session. I'm Morgan Cave, a Director of Instructional Technology in Richardson Independent School District.
And I'm Brian Messenger, the District Coordinator of Classroom Instructional Technology and Student Achievement at the Sewanaka Central High School District, which is just outside of New York City on suburban Long Island. And we are here today to tell you all sorts of amazing things about what Morgan and I do every day, and how it could probably help you and maybe inspire you and hopefully inspire you. But before we get into it, we're going to focus on our why we do what we do.
So Brian and I are educators first. This is my 17th year in public education, and I work in a district that serves about 37,000 students in North Texas. And prior to being in my role in instructional technology, I was a classroom teacher first for 12 years. So across several different grade levels and content areas in an elementary campus right here in my district, I got a lot of strong classroom experience. And 4 years of that was actually in a one-to-one classroom with iPads. And this was before the days of MDMs and before my district had adopted Jamf. And so I deeply understand how we're able to leverage these tools to streamline teaching and make learning easier in the classroom. And I really understand the instructional implications of every decision that we make with our devices.
And I just literally today am celebrating the completion of my 20th year in education. And 16 of those were spent also as a classroom teacher and school administrator. But in one way, shape, or form, I was in a classroom with students for 16 years, teaching social studies, which I still miss every single day. And I have been in this role as the leader of instructional technology for 4.5 years. And I still get to teach adults. I still get to do really cool things every day. But my why are always the faces you see on the screen. It's the students and how can we transform teaching and learning. So Morgan and I both come at the world of instructional technology from the lens of a classroom teacher. What do you need as a teacher? What do our students need? And that's a really unique lens, as we have learned. When I first heard about Jamf, I thought it was an acronym. I spent a while trying to figure out what it stood for, and now I know it doesn't stand for anything. And it's been quite the journey. But while I can do all sorts of fancy things in Jamf now, I still, everything we do with technology, my question is always, why are we doing this? How is it impacting students? How is it transforming teaching and learning? And I think that is something that gets very lost in our world, in the day to day, when people are coming at you with this problem and that problem, and we need to fix this and we need to do that. And I had a student do this. How can you take care of it? We run into the so many restrictions, so little time, temptation of Jamf, which is such a powerful tool. And when you go into those configuration profiles and you see that restriction payload, it seems so much that people just run right to, well, what do I need to do to lock these devices down so students don't do this, that, or the other thing? Just if you look at the examples on the screen, using the camera. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we want to let kids use the cameras. They could take pictures. They could use it for this. They could do that. We should probably restrict that. And oh, FaceTime. Oh my God, we have to restrict that. That's terrible. And oh my God, and the list goes on and on and on. And you could think of a bad situation that will justify restricting X, Y, and Z. But imagine an iPad without the use of camera. When, as an instructor, I want my students taking pictures. I want them doing videos. I want them embracing our push towards creative teaching and learning. So now, wait a minute, I don't know if I really want to restrict the camera. And FaceTime, that seemed like a no-brainer. And then we had that whole pandemic thing, which I'm hoping we're not going to talk about anymore. But oh my God, FaceTime became our lifeline, whether it was FaceTime or Google Meet or Zoom or whatever it was. And AirDrop and AirPlay, and my God, the conversations every day of what should we restrict, and the challenge is for us, how do you restrict things as little as possible to empower students the most?
So we really want
Which
to
brings us
allow
to,
as much. We want to allow as much functionality as possible for students while removing the unnecessary distractions. So there's certainly a balance there. So we do, really customize and personalize our devices to remove things that students don't need while leaving as much available as we can. And I always think about AirDrop because that is one that we get questions about all the time. Our teachers say, well, the kids are airdropping pictures to each other, and can we restrict that? Well, of course we can, but we want to allow that as an option for our students because we want students collaborating and working in groups, and maybe they've gone out and taken photos or videos and now they need to share that back with the rest of their group because they're each going to individually create a product that demonstrates what they were working on and learning together that day. So we want to allow as much functionality as possible, and then we want to use our teachers to help guide our students in making good choices because the ultimate goal for us as educators is to prepare students for life after school, right, in real world. And there's not going to be somebody managing their device for them. So we want to equip our students with the skills that they need so that they can use these tools for good and leverage these things for good, and for learning, and learn how to manage them as people and as adults as well.
And think back to when we were in school. I'll just speak for myself when I was in school. Not that I ever did this, but there were classmates sitting around me taking their nicely sharpened Ticonderoga #2 pencil, throwing them up at the ceiling to see how many they could stick in the tiles. Now, at no point did anyone say, oh, this is a serious problem. We better stop using #2 pencils. Or that time that someone passed a note to another student, there was no push to ban paper or restrict the use of paper, to say nothing of paper airplanes and spitballs and straws, and think of all of the things. But in our world now, because technology has become so empowering, everyone is also turning to us as the IT professionals, as the instructional technology leaders, to fix every problem in the world with technology. And the same way, you weren't going to stop kids from throwing paper airplanes by banning paper. You don't want to restrict the iPad, because if you took away the pencils because they were throwing them at the ceiling, and you took away the paper because they were turning into airplanes, then all of a sudden you were not able to write or take notes or do anything. So that was unthinkable. People need to start thinking of the iPad the same way they think about a pen or a paper. It is not a novelty. It's not an extra. It's not a reward or a punishment for a student. The functionality is not a reward or a punishment for a student. Can you restrict AirDrop because that kid just AirDropped a picture to another kid that he probably shouldn't have sent to that kid? Yeah, we could restrict AirDrop. Or we could use those old school, tried and true classroom practices to engage students, give them, as Morgan was saying, that set of skills that they're going to need for life and the world, and manage our classrooms without using technology as the management. We don't need to use Big Brother to spy at their screens. We don't need to monitor every swipe and click. We need to teach them good habits while making sure that they recognize that that iPad is a powerful tool. And just like every powerful tool, you can use it for good things, or you can use it for digital paper airplanes. So that is where we try to focus on the possibilities. And both Morgan and myself have used Jamf to focus on the possibilities of what could be done. A couple years ago, I made, I don't know, an accidental discovery that you can use Jamf to push out wallpapers. So I said, all right, what are the possibilities with this configuration? And we started using them for important messages for students. We started reminding students to update. And then Morgan has found that little idea that I stumbled upon, and she has made it even better. And I'm going to steal the idea back from her as soon as we're done recording this session. Go ahead, Morgan. You want to share how you've taken that idea and run with it?
Yes. So we really leverage the restrictions, and our updating struggles tend to impact staff more than our students. And so we took Brian's idea and we also push out a wallpaper. So currently, right now, we're trying to make sure that before the end of the year, all of our users are on iOS 15. And so we've pushed out a wallpaper to anyone that is on 14 still. that instructs them to update and how and who to contact if they need support. And now, since we have passed a certain deadline, those that have not updated, we have restricted everything except for the settings app. So they can't do much with that iPad until they go into settings. And so, when we work in a district of this size where we have thousands of staff members, and we have 54 campuses, and our instructional technology department, can't be at every campus every day, these tools really help us to, again, keep technology moving so that we can make learning and teaching even better and enhance those without some of these logistical things getting in the way.
And that's just
And,
a couple of examples. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the students and the restrictions, something that we like to say in reference to a lot of things around here is presume positive intent. So when we're looking at those restrictions, we really do think of those as possibilities. So I work with our engineer and we go through those things line by line. And as we evaluate whether we want to, enable features or disable features, I every time ask myself, how could this be used for learning and what would this look like in the classroom? And is that something that we want to leave available? And sometimes the answer is no. And so, we put those things in place, but sometimes there's that possibility there of something that somebody might do. And we want to leave that there for our students and for our teachers.
Yeah, our default is, are we restricting anything? No. Can we do this? Yes. If someone says, hey, can you come up with a way for us to do this? Can you come up with a way to push out a survey to all of our seniors? Hey, Brian, students really haven't put in those requests for their caps and gowns for graduation. Can you push out this digital form to their iPads? Of course we do, and students are used to it. There's a million ways to empower students through configuration profiles, and I think we try to focus on the possibilities, not on the restrictions. But it's important to recognize that um, neither Morgan in her district nor myself in our district, which is small by comparison, we're only 5 high schools with 8,600 students. Um, we don't make these decisions sort of in a little bubble. We don't sit here and channel our inner Dr. Evil and put our finger to our mouth and say, what can I restrict today? Or what can I empower today? Um, it's important to do things collaboratively. And this is something that is truly, truly important for us. And that is to communicate with the other leaders in the district. I am truly blessed in my district where the head of the curriculum world sits on the other side of this wall right over here. And we talk about everything. So the decisions that I make are not my own. They are decisions made in collaboration with the curriculum office, because iPads without purpose are really fun toys. We need iPads and technology and MacBooks with purpose. And that purpose, of course, is to improve teaching and learning. So we have to be one voice with the curriculum leaders and the other instructional leaders in the district. What are our goals? In our district right now, we are just embarking on a project called Portrait of a Graduate. And we're just completing the project, where we are identifying what is the North Star for our students. What do we want a
We just did
graduate
the
to
same thing.
be? Did you really?
We're
That's
doing that
amazing.
right
I didn't
now
even know
also.
that.
Yes, I know.
All right, so I'm going to rewind that. Don't edit it. This is real. We're doing this live. We
Yeah.
just completed a process called Portrait of a Graduate. Way to go. And now we know what we want a student graduating from our schools to be. We know what skills, we know what who they are, what the core of what our mission is. And now the challenge for us is to make sure that the technology supports us getting to that mission. So we are revamping all of our curriculum. Our curriculum is now focusing on Understanding by Design 2.0. Our curriculum is now incorporating more than ever open educational resources and moving away from traditional textbooks. Um, Now, we can't do that. Curriculum can't do that without technology, and technology can't really be purposeful without having those conversations with the curriculum office, where we agree that we are going to focus on project-based learning, challenge-based learning, challenge by choice, that we are going to really embrace the technology to support the mission of who we want our graduates to be. So this technology with purpose is sort of becoming almost like a mission lately, where, it's not just, hey, we have iPads and we're going to play Kahoot today. It was fun. That's great. That's step one. After a few years of hybrid and remote learning and people really embracing instructional technology more than ever, whether they wanted to or not, now's the time to capitalize on it and make sure that that technology has a purpose.
Yes, and to kind of follow along a thread of something you mentioned earlier is that we don't want the technology to be viewed as an extra piece, right? It's not something fun, it's not something additional. It's just part of how we learn and one of our tools. And so we really focus on pairing with our curriculum department to do two things. One is to approve the resources that we put into self-service. So as teachers request things, we are really mindful of what goes in there. And as teachers request things, we pair up with our teaching and learning department to approve those resources and make sure that they are aligned to our district vision, that they are aligned to state standards and our other core tools, and also just to make sure that there's not something that they are already using that serves the same purpose. Because, we don't want to overwhelm teachers with resources. We want to give them a variety that they can choose from without there being so many that they don't know where to start and they feel overwhelmed. And then we also partner with them because, they're the content experts, but we are the tool experts, and we really focus on those best practices and, things like the ISTE standards. And so we also are pairing with them to see how they can really leverage, for example, native tools. So they're the content experts, and we help them see how they can maximize the apps that we have available in self-service, things like Keynote and Clips, or even just Camera, that's already on the iPad, so they can create those open-ended, standards-based tasks that are aligned using best practices with technology.
And using all of your tools is super important because I mentioned that she started in this world before they had an MDM. Think of all the
Yes.
power that they have now.
Yes. And so, an example of, tying together several things we've mentioned and using all those tools is, you have that really deep customization and personalization within Jamf where you can do the app configuration. And so that was an area where we were able to, instead of thinking about restricting, leave something open for possibilities. So we had an issue where we had students using a video conference platform to chat with each other via text. And these are elementary students, and so we know that some students still need to use the app. We have students who are maybe conferencing up with the junior high because they're taking classes that are advanced beyond elementary. We have students connecting with other classes in other states, doing mystery video conferencing and things like that. So we want that tool to be available because it's such a great global connection tool. But we want to minimize those distractions. And also we're talking about kids under 13. So we want to make sure that our kids are safe. So that's a place where we do want to use these tools, the restrictions and configurations, so we can leave those possibilities open for students, but keep them safe. And so we were able to use app configuration with Zoom to remove that feature so that students couldn't sign into Zoom, meaning they can't chat with each other, but they can still go on to a Zoom. They can still interact. They can still engage with a lesson and use video conferencing without having that additional piece that at that time wasn't providing us with instructional value. And I also think about using all of our tools again with our managed app library. So, a lesson that we learned is, in the days of there's an app for that, there was always that you need an app for every single thing you do. And there was that whole mindset. And then we learned that less is more. Again, we don't want to overwhelm our teachers. We don't want to overwhelm our students. And when, we went through learning at home, we realized we also don't want to overwhelm our parents who are looking at that app library, who are looking at self-service and saying, why does my child need access to 100 different apps to learn? And so using our tools to really pare that down so that teachers have so many possibilities at their fingertips to facilitate learning while keeping it manageable and also taking some things off their plate. So through using self-service and putting our apps out there for teachers in that way and limiting the app store for students and just having self-service as their app library, Teachers don't have to worry about, does it meet COPA and FERPA? Does it meet our district guidelines? Does it meet curriculum needs? Is it safe for my students? We do all of that for them and then make it available. So we're really taking something off of our teachers' plate so they can really just focus on the teaching and learning.
Which is perfect. And we find ourselves doing the same thing, where, man, when I took over this job 4.5 years ago, we had over 500 apps available, which were sort of kind of curated, but it was part of that app for everyone mentality. And we have
Yeah, we have
so many
400.
configuration profiles. Yeah, we're about down to 400 now. I find myself,
Oh, gosh.
it's addition through
Okay, I
subtraction.
think we're
We're
down to
trying to
40.
get we're oh God.
Are you still
We're
jealous?
trying I am. We're we're trying to find what works for people, but as Morgan mentioned earlier, we're also trying to remove the redundancy. We don't need four tools that do the same thing. We're going to pick the best tool, provide professional learning on that tool, and make sure that it's valuable. So use all your tools, but also use them again with purpose. Don't just get the shiny object because, oh, it's another thing. Yay, I love things. Make sure that thing has purpose. But I will say this. You always hear people saying, well, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I used to teach social studies. The wheel, pretty old. Might be time to actually reinvent the wheel. Um, you know, I learned something new in this session that I planned with Morgan. Um, we learn new things every day, and just because you've always done it this way, or well, that's what we do, and that's my role, and here's what this is about, we really need to rethink what we do, not just with instructional technology, but with instruction, with teaching and learning. So I think the more you start to reinvent the wheel, the more you start to really think about how to do things differently, the faster we can all roll. Because I think my least favorite phrase in public education is, but we've always done it that way. The minute you answer a question with "we've always done it that way," you have
It's
now
time to rethink
challenged
it.
me to change the way we're thinking it. So do think about that. I do hope that you found all of this thought provoking. I hope that you go back to your respective districts and say, all right, here's an area where we can even do one small thing. And it's not to say that I'm doing everything perfect here in our district. I don't want to speak for Morgan. She probably is doing everything perfect in Richardson. But we can all learn from each other. And as we do that, I think together we can really make the technology more purposeful, more meaningful, more integrated with the teaching and learning, because you have to remember who your ultimate consumer is. We're not corporate IT. We are instructional technology to help teachers help kids. And that's what my why was 20 years ago. It's still my why. And it's always going to be my why even after I retire eventually. So thank you so much for
Absolutely.
listening. Hope you enjoyed. And sorry you can't be with us here in sunny San Diego. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you so much.